Let me tell you the tragic story of Elsie Adeline Luke. Elsie was tragically murdered in Bathampton in 1891, although the case unfolded 2 years later. As we walk through the streets of beautiful Bath and Bathampton, I'll tell you what we know about this Victorian murder mystery. Elsie was born, we believe, in 1867 in East London. Her parents were German immigrants. She had issues with the law from a very young age. At the age of 14, she was charged at Thames Magistrate Court for felony in service. Usually that would mean stealing from your employer. Being a young teenager, she was taken to prison for a few days and then sent to Limpley Stoke Reformatory for 5 years, around here in Bath. That was basically a center for poor girls who had offended, where they were taught domestic skills. The matron of the establishment found her a very pretty girl, with good teeth, but a violent temper. She was very good at sewing, though. Elsie left the reformatory at the age of 19 in 1885. She had tried to go back to London, but her stepdad was very violent, so she came back down here to Bath and took up needlework. In the spring of 1890, Elsie met Arthur Coombs, a 17-year-old apprentice in a carriage work company. She found work in a linen company, but she left due to her epileptic fits. Although some people that knew her claimed that her fits happened whenever she wanted. She'd always been a bit of a liar and sometimes a little bit manipulative as well. She took different jobs in service in the area, often with fake recommendations. Eventually she found a good job in service in Clifton, a beautiful neighborhood of Bristol. As she was away, Arthur found out that she had lied about her past, about her parents, about everything. He dumped her. And he started dating a Mary Louise Shepherd, also known as Polly. When Elsie heard that, she was furious. She left Bristol and came back. She came banging his door around here in Kingsmead area, shouting that she was pregnant. We don't really know whether there was any truth behind it. She did not look pregnant and she told different things to different people. Using false references, she registered with an employment agency. They found her a job in service around here. This is the beautiful area of Oldfield Park. She was hired in the household of Mr. and Mrs. Carey as a cook in Charrington House. At first, Mr. and Mrs. Carey enjoyed her company. She could speak French and she could read music, but apparently she had a bad temper and some kind of an arrogance to her. Charrington House has survived, and I believe it is this one. It has been renamed. It is now a hotel and guest house called The Greys. If that's not the right building, let me know in the comments. All the beautiful homes on this street look quite similar anyway. According to one of the other servant girls, when she was working here, every so often a young man would come and visit Elsie. A young man looking very much like Arthur, although it cannot be certain. Elsie definitely told a few people that she was seeing Arthur again, and that they were gonna leave and get married. Although she'd told many things to many people, people didn't know when to believe her anymore. But it does look like at this point Arthur was seeing both Polly and Elsie. Elsie sent Polly all the love letters she'd got from Arthur, trying to stir some drama, but it didn't work. Polly didn't care. Polly told Arthur that he should stop seeing her, that she was a liar, she wasn't pregnant. Eventually, Mr. Carey gave her notice because of all the lies and her bad behavior. Elsie said, "Fine, I'm going back down to London anyway to collect the money from one of my uncles that passed away." But before to leave the Careys' house, she stole a dress, some nightwear, and some underwears as well from her employers. She also came back down here to Kingsmead to find some lodgings. She told the lady that was hosting her that the Careys were away and that they would pay for her lodging once they came back. She also visited a shoemaker shop on Westgate. She managed to convince the manager to give her a pair of Oxford boots. She said it was for Mrs. Carey. She would pay, of course. She would pay later. With her new boots, she was seen the next day twice walking with Arthur. She even called at a friend's house to tell them that she was about to marry him. That one day, when his parents were away, they would live together and get married. It's now the beginning of August, 1891. It was a bank holiday weekend at the time. She was seen again leaving the house where she stayed in Kingsmead, followed by Arthur, and she'd told a few people that she was gonna jump on a train to get some money out of that mysterious dead uncle. That was the last time she was seen. About an hour after her last sighting, two boys, 13 and 15 years old, Arthur and Frank, were having a picnic on Hampton Rocks, where they spotted an agitated young man wearing only a shirt and socks. Well, that's only according to one of my sources. According to another source, he was bareheaded, wearing no jacket or no waistcoat. Whatever he was wearing, for Victorian standards, it was very unusual. It qualified as half naked. They confronted the young man. They were like, "What's up with you?" He said he'd been swimming in the River Avon when someone stole all his stuff. That did sound a bit suspicious because the river was a mile away. A couple of days later, a boy found a nice black hat. He took it to his mother. The mother said, "No, I don't want it. It belonged to a murdered girl." A surprisingly accurate guess. In the area of Hampton Rocks, there was an old quarry where someone found an handkerchief embroidered H. Carey. But again, nobody thought much of it at the time. Lots of people found random items in this area. Someone also found a pair of bloodied cuffs and a gold watch and chain. They did give the cuffs to the police, but they kept the watch for themselves to sell it and make a bit of money. No one really noticed that poor Elsie was missing. The lady she was staying at believed she'd gone back to the Careys. Some of her friends believed that she'd met another young boy and run away with him. Some believed she'd gone back to London to get the money from that mysterious uncle. This is St. Nicholas Church in Bathampton. Let me show you where she's buried. Anyway, 2 years later, in 1893, in September, 2 kids were playing in the old quarry. Today, because of health and safety, you'd never let the kids play in the caves, but at the time, they did. And with the light of their candles, they spotted a skeleton, hidden underneath rocks. The boys ran, of course, to go and tell their dads and consequently the police. The body appeared to be of a young lady, 5 feet tall, good teeth, between 19 and 21 years of age. She was wearing a brand new pair of Oxford boots, like the one stolen from Westgate, remember? Here she is, so this is the headstone of Elsie Adeline Luke. It looks very new because it's been refurbished in 2005. The body was also wearing a pair of underwear that seemed to be quite out of fashion, really. Apparently no one was wearing those since 1891. The underwear were also marked H. Carey. Very quickly after finding the body, everyone came to visit Hampton Rocks. Everyone came down to the quarry. Street vendors started selling lemonade and people started posing for pictures with the cave. And we think dark tourism is new. It's not. You even had street vendors selling sheep bones, pretending it came from the body, of course, as a little souvenir. The body had been taken to this pub, the George. With those sinister Victorian tales, you really realize the true meaning of public house. You know, pub is short for public house. If we found the body today, it wouldn't even cross our minds to take it down to the local pub. But at the time, it happened. And at the time, very often the inquest into a crime was performed at the pub. That's exactly what happened here. The inquest happened here at the George. Now, once the body was identified, thanks to the Oxford boots as well as the good teeth, and the stolen underwear, of course, Arthur was very quickly arrested. But Polly gave him an alibi for that day. Nothing to do with our story, but as you walk around Bath, you might come around this beautiful water fountain that reads, "Water is best." That is from the Victorian temperance movement, trying to stop people drinking alcohol. You can see some drunken angel down here in the engraving. Anyway, back to Arthur. Although he had an alibi from his girlfriend, a lot of witnesses had seen him with Elsie the day before she disappeared. Some people had also seen him walking by the canal where we walked earlier, with a young girl that they believed to be Elsie, but he claimed it was actually a different girl called Miss Thorpe. So he might have been seeing 3 girls at the same time, Polly, Elsie, and Miss Thorpe. Very quickly there's a chemist from here in Central Bath that came to tell the police that he had treated Arthur for an injured thumb. Arthur's fingers had been badly bitten by a human. Was that Elsie? Did they have a fight? She was known to be of a violent temper after all. However, Arthur claimed that he had been in a fight in Bathampton a week earlier, and that he had been beaten during the fight. And he only went to see the chemist much later on when the wound never healed. Now, as you walk the streets of Bath, you might notice those doors that are a bit larger than usual. That was for the sedan chairs. You know, the rich people of Bath would be carried into a chair, lifted by 2 men. Those sedan chairs, of course, showed your status, but not only. That would also give you privacy, because you could close the curtains. Because if you came out of a horse carriage, you'd have to exit the carriage to get in. People would see you. With a sedan chair, you could go all the way into a lady's lodgings. Nobody would know who went in. That could be very useful. Anyway, before to get back into our story, let me show you an establishment here that Elsie would have known. This is the Sally Lunn restaurant. It is said to be the oldest house in Bath. Sally Lunn, it is believed, was a young lady from France. She was a Huguenot, you know, one of those Protestants that were badly treated in France and had to emigrate to the UK, to Germany, to Canada, to South Africa. It is believed that Sally was originally called Solange Luyon, but no one in Bath could pronounce her name, so she went as Sally Lunn, and she was hired here in a bakery. And she started to produce those little brioche buns that were so tasty, with a secret recipe from France. Some people claim that the name actually comes from Soleil Lune, French for sun and moon. Who knows? There is absolutely no evidence that Solange, aka Sally, ever existed. Yet, the bakery and restaurant has become one of the most famous in Bath. Although some claim it is a tourist trap, that you pay £5 for a simple bun. Anyway, back to our story. I didn't even tell you what Elsie died of, although the body was quite badly decomposed and eaten by rodents. The pathologist was able to find a big crack in the skull, so it would have been a big blow to the head. Sadly, when she was buried at St. Nicholas Church, no one turned up apart from the police officers. Even her mother in the East End did not bother to come. And she probably would have known because the case was all over the newspapers. Ah, see this little thing in the corner there? That's to avoid gentlemen pissing in the dark corner. Charming. Now, did Arthur do it? It's hard to tell, really. At first, the police actually suspected a guy that lived in some kind of a hut above the quarry. But they had no evidence against him either. He was pretty much eliminated, so all the suspicions remained on Arthur. But they did not have enough. A lot of people came to the trial preaching for his good character, and the inquest had concluded open verdict, murdered by person or persons unknown. So sadly, it remains a murder mystery. Arthur married Polly, and he became a local preacher, teaching Sunday school, which might or might not be quite ironic, especially with all the suspicions that lingered around him, and probably his scarred thumb that might have been scarred by the teeth of the victim. Eventually, him and Polly moved to Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. So quite a distance away. Was it because it became too much? Because Arthur would never live without the suspicions? Maybe not. Maybe they just fancied a change. They left in 1913, so 20 years after the events. Another weird little fact is that in 1969, someone added in the church burial documents that a confession had been made. Someone on his deathbed in Australia. What? Could it be Arthur on his deathbed in Canada? Contacting the church to add this to maybe clear his name or something? We don't know. What we do know is this is a tragic, cold case that sadly might never be solved. I hope you enjoyed that little video about the case of Elsie Adeline Luke. If you've made it that far into the video, please consider subscribing for more fascinating murder cases in location. Thanks for watching. Bye.